Today, as promised, we're going to be looking at what's going on with men and specifically what's stopping your man from becoming a king in his life, in your relationship, for himself and for you. And so what do we mean by king? You know, we tend to use this language a lot in the led by love world of stepping into your queen, him showing up as a king. And so, you know, firstly, I think him being a king means him taking ownership, right, for his emotional wounding that I know you know he has, and we're going to get to that later. And of course, holds himself accountable for healing those wounds so that he is firstly able to handle strong emotions, deep emotions, which many men struggle with, and is able to do so without collapsing, without freaking out, without getting triggered or shutting down or checking out or whatever his pattern might be. And also so that he can stop those unhealed wounds leaking out and showing up in various ways in your relationship and sabotaging connection with you. His king identity, his king self is also that heart-led leadership so that he can lovingly take the lead in certain areas of your life, of your relationship, so that you don't always have to feel like it's all on you, right? If you watched the men's masterclass that we ran last week, and I'll give you a replay to that in a minute, actually, you'll know that a major thing that we pointed out, or that I pointed out in that masterclass, is that men don't intuitively understand how important safety is to your nervous system as a feminine being. The importance of safety coming first before any other positive emotion can be felt by you. So, you know, he wants to feel you as being, you know, soft, open, receptive, nurturing, you know, whatever that is specifically for him. And what men tend to not understand is that for you, as let's say the more delicate vessel, how important that safety piece is for you before you can be or feel any of those things. And, you know, one of the reasons that that isn't intuitive for us, one of the key differences between men and women, and there are many, is that we're kind of designed to thrive, to you know, function in a certain amount of high risk, dangerous environments, all the way going back to our ancestors around, you know, hunting, protecting you and children and all the rest of it, right? And you know, one of the things I pointed out as well in that masterclass is that it's so important for a man to not just act safe or appear to be safe or to convince you that he's safe, because some men have sort of figured this out. But then the next piece is it's not just about convincing you, it's about being safe and making that decision within himself and not just acting safe. And this is kind of like a, you know, a sort of a mind-blowing moment for a lot of men when they figure out that that's what they've been doing. They've been performing, they've been trying to convince you that they are, you know, a certain way in order to get a certain kind of response from you, right? And that's not the same as actually being safe. And so, you know, diving right into all this then, a couple of classic ways that men fail to create that safety in your nervous system within the relationship itself. Firstly is ego. There are many men out there like myself at times where we have this sort of my way or the highway kind of way of being, and really underneath that, where that is coming from, this kind of I'm the head of the household, you know, very closed minded, very singular way of thinking, is underneath that is a fear of being wrong, fear of looking weak, fear of losing respect, a fear of feeling unimportant. And at its heart, underneath all of that, is really a fear of being rejected or a fear of being abandoned. And so, of course, when operating from that place, that fails to create the safety that you need, because that is obviously very unsafe way to, or let's just call it like an unsteady way to navigate life. It doesn't have a solid foundation. Conversely, there's another kind of archetype of man who fails to create safety because he is afraid of upsetting you. So instead of having this sort of arrogance, it's always my way or the highway, it's more like whatever you say, dear, and whatever you say goes, and he doesn't want to, you know, uh, upset you. AKA, he is the people pleaser. And, this is men who, on the surface of things, they tend to think along the lines of, well, what's wrong with not wanting to cause trouble? What's wrong with wanting to create peace? What's wrong with being a nice guy? But in reality, just like the other kind of guy, the more ego driven guy, he's actually terrified of rejection. And so he conforms to whatever he thinks other people need him to be. And he molds himself into that shape. And of course, that also fails to create the safety that you need before you can start to trust, respect, open up, and all these other things that he obviously really wants from you too. And it's because, look, you don't want to feel like you can make him do anything, right? You want to know that he has a certain steadiness and a certain solidity within himself. And, I wanted to speak today as well about this phrase that I really just came to know not that long ago, actually, which is this piece around women having to do all the emotional labor in the relationship, or all the emotional heavy lifting. And I have to be honest, the way I first sort of heard this phrase wasn't actually from within this sort of space of relationship coaching. It was from women commenting on my posts and my ads for, where we're talking about led by love. And they're like, this is just more of women having to do all the emotional labor. I'm like, so where does this phrase come from? Emotional labor. This is clearly a thing. So what is it? What are women talking about? And it shows up as a few different ways. One is, he can't meet you on the level of emotional depth that you are comfortable in, that you feel connection through, and he's not able to meet you there. Maybe it's like you have to say things the exact right way because he has extreme sensitivities around certain subjects, as we spoke about before, which might shut him down, make him check out, or triggers a sort of combative reaction in him. And so you're having to like become this relationship, conversational communication ninja to avoid that, which of course is exhausting. It might be that you really are having to manage your own emotional responses in such a way because he can't handle them. And look, to be fair, you've got to do that anyway. We all have to do that. But of course, when you feel like you're doing it because of somebody else's extreme sensitivity, as opposed to your own self emotional mastery, that starts to get very old pretty quick, and will guarantee that you feel resentment in that relationship, right? It also shows up as him, I mentioned before, of him having wounding that he is avoiding on some level, that he's failing to tend to. And so the bottom line with women having to do all the emotional labor is that there is this lack of emotional intelligence in him, or a disparity between yours and his, that is becoming a problem. And look, this is absolutely a thing. And I have to say, he's getting worse out there in the world from my observations. I mean, even in our amongst our inner circle women, our Led by Love graduates, and those who are doing our more advanced programs, even amongst them, where in the last, 6 months or so, year or so maybe, I've got to a point with many of these women where they are doing absolutely everything at the elite level of queenhood, of relationship mastery, of emotional mastery, of self-love, and all of these things, to the point where I haven't got much else to give them. It's like you're doing all the things, and so what comes next for when they might not be suffering quite on that level as I described, but maybe they want to take things to the next level of depth, the next level of connection, want to take their relationship to the next level of it being this sort of thing that it really could be. And it's like, you know what? Okay, it's his turn now, right? So that is why I am very happy to say that I have decided to do something about it, and I have created a relationship transformational intensive, aka a program for men. And maybe some of you know, but I started out as a men's coach before I started working only with women through Led by Love. I was working exclusively with men for some years. And so it's like there's this full circle thing that's come around where it's like I'm back. Sharif, the men's coach, is ready to work with men. And it just feels right having, created so much transformation with Led by Love. And there's this strong feeling that I have now of like, okay, it's the guy's turn now. So yeah, what I'm going to do today is I want to share with you what I will be doing with the men in that program, the select group of very brave men who choose to join me in this intensive. And so by extension then, what I will be discussing is what your man needs, why he's been struggling, and also, of course, what has been lacking in him up till now. So we spoke before about safety, and a key part of what needs to happen with these men is firstly understanding what the feminine heart needs in relationship with regards to safety, so that he can have that empathy and that understanding to create that connection, and specifically how to communicate with women, because it's not the same as communicating with men. And so understanding the feminine heart is going to be a huge part, and it's exactly in the same way that in Led by Love we help women understand the male mind and heart, and adapt the communication techniques and skills around that piece. So that's going to be in there in order to help create that foundation of safety. But most importantly, more than anything, it is about him connecting to himself, developing a beautiful relationship with himself first. It's not a program in how to, charm you into believing XYZ or feeling XYZ. It's not about how to get your approval. Far from it. For many men, it's the complete opposite. And it's about creating that relationship with himself. And the primary way that I will be doing that with these men, and what men out there need, is what I call self-fathering, which is, of course, the man-specific flavor of self-parenting. Because look, inside every man, as I'm sure if you're in here and you're listening to this, you have figured out by now, is a wounded little boy inside that man. I mean, you felt it. Maybe you're acutely aware of it, and you feel him needing you to take care of that wounded little boy and to heal that little boy. And of course, that starts to not feel good to you very quickly, because, as I mentioned in a post the other day, what is happening in that dynamic is essentially you are in relationship, you are married to that child part of him. Ugh, right? no. That's a no. That is gross. And absolutely, you don't want to do that. And it is not conducive to healthy relationship. But the truth is, the harsh truth is, nobody gave him, or you for that matter, the tools for that self-parenting, right? So when he learns how to hold that part of himself, how to love that part of himself, that younger part of him that never really got his needs met, that is what stops him from making you, consciously or unconsciously, his mother, and also stops him from, as I mentioned before, collapsing, freaking out, or shutting down when he comes into connection with certain deep emotions, because he's got the tools, the capacity to hold that within himself. And of course, what comes next is you and him being able to have that healthy, adult, mature connection, right? And that self-parenting, that self-fathering happens largely through the body with what is known as embodiment, right? So as well as my background in working with men before creating Led by Love, some of you will know that the way I got into working with men was through initially teaching martial arts and self-defense and self-protection. And so it was really through the body that I started to connect with men in this way, and then wanting to coach them on their inner world, because we access that through the body first. And it is the most powerful way to go about this. It is the only way to do it, because emotions live in the body. They're not in your brain. Like, we go to talk therapy because we think like we're going to deal with our inner stuff by talking about it. But all of that is happening up here, which is why the change doesn't happen in him. And you don't feel it, because it's, even for the men who have done some talk therapy, it doesn't shift what needs to shift, that you can feel on the level of his body. And so that is where the healing takes place. And it is also, you know, when you think about how you want him to feel to you, right? So if you think about how you would like you want him to feel like, that energy to you when you are in connection with him within the relationship, there is a strong bodily component to that. It is him having a lengthened spine, so a straight spine and sturdy, but without rigidity, right? Without him being stiff and yet not collapse. So there's a straightness that you want to feel from him. You want to feel that he's grounded, that he's in his body, that he is steady, he's sturdy, and he's present, and he's here. And that takes place in the lower body specifically. And a lot of men are totally disconnected from their lower body. So getting into the body, connecting to the ground, literally being grounded, is essential. You also want to feel that his heart is open. You want to feel that it is accessible, and maybe not necessarily wide open for you to dive into. I know some of you might think that that sounds amazing, but you don't want that either. What you want is this conscious openness. And what that comes from in men is a softness in the front of the body. Many men hold so much tension in the front of their body, in their stomach, in their hips, their chest. And, you know, I'm not just talking about stretching like you do at the gym or a personal trainer could do with you. And I know that because I was a personal trainer too. I've worn many hats. But when we get into the body and we start to open that up, there's a lot in there that's been trapped for a long time. And so while it's not all about getting into the body and crying and feeling all the feelings all the time, there's an element to that. Nonetheless, men need to get into their body, and not least of all because through that, this and being embodied is what creates the presence that you have probably been craving from him, yearning for a very long time. And what many men don't understand or appreciate until they have felt it, it is actually how they want to feel as well. So embodiment is being present to myself, being exquisitely present to the moment and the environment, and then therefore obviously exquisitely present to the person in front of me, i.e. you. And so what many men come to realize when they learn, honestly, the relatively very simple way of putting that into practice when I work with men, is that this one piece is like an absolute game changer for their entire relationship. So when they get to feel, when they put this into practice with you in front of them, and they get to experience the effect that has on you, how you open, you soften, you start to trust. And for many men who have felt very unwanted or undesired for a long time, how that energy becomes very magnetic. And so his presence and his attention becomes extremely valuable to you because of the quality, the embodied quality of that presence. Then suddenly, boom, just like that, he gets to feel like he's absolutely winning with you in his life as a man. And that presence piece through the body is, it's actually so relatively simple. But yeah, absolute game changer. Another thing that men need, and I will absolutely be doing with the men in this program, is helping them gain clarity. Most men are extremely unclear, and many men are even lost, right? They are disconnected from their vision, from their sense of purpose for themselves, for their lives, and for the relationship as well. And so what we're talking about on the one level is really getting connected to that desire in his heart for what's that purpose in his heart for, what do you really want, what's the highest vision that you have, right? And from that, what happens is that is what connects men to this part of themselves that you will feel as this heart-connected leadership from him, because he has that vision. But as well as desire, which is a yes, clarity means getting very connected to boundaries, which are a no. So desire is a yes, the boundaries are a no. And these two things are together are what creates clarity. And so boundaries for him means boundaries with himself. Maybe there's certain things in his life that within himself that he needs to be saying no to. Boundaries with others. Maybe it's work, maybe it's family members, maybe even kids. And also boundaries with you. So this is a very interesting one. And I enjoy seeing this when I'm working with women, is because you will all have a very different response to that in your body, of when I paint this picture of a man who is able to say no to you. And for many women, what was surprising to me at a certain point was how many women are actually wanting that, how that actually feels good on some level, like you say no. And so there's this combination of, that's actually kind of attractive, because he isn't afraid of me. He's clear within himself, and he's speaking from love and purpose, but it comes out through a no. And at the same time, as a woman, you don't want to hear no, right? You don't want to be rejected. And so there's this often a strong feeling. In fact, let me know in the chat. Let's do this. So put something in there for me. What comes up for you when I paint this picture of him saying no to you? Does it feel like, ugh, he always says no, and that's valid? Or maybe you can connect to this thing that I'm speaking about, where actually that's kind of maybe slightly attractive. So put something in there. I'm going to see if I can read the comments over here in real time. Give me a chance to get some lubrication as well. All right, I'm not seeing anything yet. Let's see. Might take you a minute to write about that, to be fair. It's kind of a deep one. Okay, Shaheen says, I feel loved, cared for, safe, sexy. All right, yes. Laura, I know it's totally welcome if it's led by God, if it's led by God and big love. Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. All right, so I'm not going to spend too much time there. I want to carry on with what I wanted to speak about today. So yeah, so it's an interesting one, right? Like it's kind of a deep. So getting clear within himself. Also, what is absolutely essential for men and what maybe many of you can resonate with is this male loneliness epidemic, or what I called on the masterclass last week a friendship recession, which is going on with men. And I gave some interesting stats in there about how men are becoming lonelier, i.e., disconnected from other men. And the reason why one of the reasons it's so important that men do this work with other men is because the problem with what we've been doing in therapy, talk therapy, up till now, for a lot of men, is that it just really doesn't work for them. I mentioned this interesting statistic that around 80% of the psychotherapeutic, the psychology field is made up of women, which of course is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what that means then is that it might not resonate with many men. And to be honest, the proof is in the pudding. I don't think it does. And what I've come to appreciate is that talking and talking about stuff doesn't work for men. If anything, it actually makes them worse because it brings them more into focus with what's not working. So they're hyper focusing on the failure rather than setting goals. And of course, that takes place in psychotherapy, but speaking in generalities now. And this other thing that I've seen a few times as well is how if that man doesn't have the tools for self-fathering, then what he will do unconsciously is make that therapist his mum, or maybe his dad if it's a male therapist, or whatever it is. And that can feel good, but it doesn't necessarily heal what needs to be healed. It doesn't address the root problem. So it's totally essential that men do this work with other men. We have been disconnected from each other, men, for a very long time. And that is a bigger conversation, and it's been getting worse over the last few decades. And that is a bigger conversation than I'll go into today. Many of you or some of you who are watching this may have done Man Mind University. That was a 10-week program where we dived into everything regarding the male mind and heart. And that was, if you're an MMU grad, put in the chat for me, please. How hardcore was that? That was, we call it Man Mind University for a reason. It is like a university degree of insight into the masculine mind and heart. And it's a big topic, so bigger than we can go into today. But the last piece I wanted to speak about in terms of what men need, and will be a key piece of what is happening with the men in the next couple of weeks, is healing their relationship with the feminine, healing their relationship to women and woman in general, and what that means psychologically speaking. So look, if you've ever felt his attraction for you suddenly vanish or dwindle over time, or something happens and it doesn't seem to make sense why that happened. If you've ever felt like he has anger that spills out onto you in moments and triggered by certain conversations, but you have this sense that it's not really about you. There's something deeper there that is being sort of put onto you, but isn't actually about you. Like he's looking at you, but he's seeing somebody else or something else. If there have ever been issues with him giving energy or attention to other women outside of your relationship, either online or um, in real life, look, there are going to be multiple facets to all of those things and what's going on there and all of that. But very, very often, the through line with all of those examples that I gave, it comes down to his what we call inner scripts that he has around women, i.e., early life experiences, almost always to do with his mum, but maybe not always, influence how he then shows up in relationship with you as a woman. And it's, again, exactly like what we do in Led by Love, is we help these women heal their relationship to the masculine. Why? Because of the various ways that those inner scripts, those blueprints around men are showing up and sabotaging their relationships with men, or their relationship, their marriage with their man. So it's exactly the same, but in reverse. And on that attraction piece that I mentioned before, you know, a major shift that I have noticed for many of the men that I worked with is, while they weren't necessarily working with me because they wanted to be more attracted to their wife or their partner, like, you know, that was maybe a symptom, one of the issues, but not the major issue. Nonetheless, even though we're not focusing on that, it's not like I'm teaching him how to be more attracted to you. Sorry, you know, I know that would be awesome, but or might sound awesome, but that's not necessarily what the work is. But almost always the side effect, the result of doing that inner work, is that that's what happens. He stops, when he's looking at you, seeing his mum or seeing all women or seeing whatever experiences he's had, and he gets to actually see you, the real you. Heart opens, and it creates this magnetic energy, because now there isn't this thing that's telling him to keep himself safe by keeping distance. Does that make sense? And so yeah, that was always a very satisfying thing for me, is when these women suddenly are like, he loves me so much more now. And, you know, it wasn't even, that's not even what I was doing with him directly, right? So I always like that. So look, these are the key things, not all of the things, but the key things that men need, and that I will be doing with men in the program starting very soon. And yeah, it's exactly what I'll be focusing on them with, so that they can create a dynamic where he automatically feels deeply respected, trusted, admired, and desired by you, as a natural consequence of the self-ownership that he is now taking, that I'll be showing him how to step into. So look, the program is called Kings of Truth. The enrollment window closes soon, and if you watched the masterclass the other week, you'll understand the significance of that truth piece and why it's called Kings of Truth. So here's what I want you to do. Comment below, and I will DM you a link that will give you the info to Kings of Truth, and it will also have the replay to that masterclass on that page as well. And there will also be a link for him, not you, him, to book a free breakthrough session with us. So yeah, let me know if this is speaking to you, if this resonates with what you've been experiencing, what you have felt for probably a while now really needs to change, and is the kind of man and relationship that really feels very good for you and in your body, and what you would love. Comment down below. I will DM you the link, and